slightly above average gamers, way above average podcast. Welcome to the Slightly Above Average Gaming Podcast with your hosts, J007TV and Sub1KD.
To the Slightly Above Average Gaming Podcast. This is episode 22. We are recording this a little bit later than we usually do, but we've got a very special guest. But before we introduce the guest, I want to introduce my homie, Sub1KD. How you doing, bud?
Going all right. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. How's your week been?
Well, I'm not going to talk about Sunday. I blotted that from my mind. It's been a busy day, though. I just got back from a field trip with the youngest, so trying to herd 25 4-year-olds through an aquarium. It's traumatizing sometimes, but it was good. We had kids had a good time. Kids are exhausted now, so I'm just hopping on here, gonna get this podcast recorded and edited and out the door almost on time.
You trying to turn it around the same day?
I'm gonna my goal, get it out here Monday.
Fantastic.
Keep our fans happy.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
So, but yeah, in addition to you and myself, you know, we do have a special guest, as you alluded, and I'd like to introduce to Kapzlocked.
Hello.
You may know him now as the guy who caught the most insane throwing knife ever thrown. But you know, I know him as probably the most cracked out controller player I've ever seen. And also, you know, good buddy and just an all around wonderful gentleman on Twitter and on stream. Caps, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. So we wanted to have you on here, do a little bit of a kind of talk about a passion topic that you know you and me have talked about quite extensively, and you know, figure it's a good time to share it on the pod, talk about the things that we our experiences and knowledge base, and try and educate everybody a bit, you know, kind of the ins and outs on what we think is going on in some areas, and then our experiences with what's happening, and kind of go from there. So, you know, we if you've been around Twitter and you've come across Kapzlocked on there, you'll see that kind of one of the topics that's been bounced around is skill-based matchmaking. I was guesting on an episode that you did with Hoppa the other day. Sorry. And we talked at length about the matchmaking and what to do about it. And I know that's been a topic you've been hot on Twitter. Why don't you lead us in and just kind of talk about VPNs and what they do and why they aren't the boogeyman they used to be.
Yeah, so skill-based matchmaking, and that word in itself, I think describing it as skill-based matchmaking is probably, with what we deal with in Call of Duty, really isn't skill-based matchmaking. It's more of a, in my opinion, an algorithm based on boosting profits and sales and player retention rather than focusing on skill level and matching you against opponents of a similar skill. Whereas, like, you look at games like Valorant or Counter-Strike, where there's a real skill-based matchmaking system, and you go play a game like that, you can definitely feel the difference. The people you're playing have similar styles to you, and almost everybody in the lobby is playing at the same level as you. And when you play Call of Duty, you're not noticing that. It's a very big difference in what you're going to notice in a game like COD. And what's funny is, being an older gamer myself, you know, playing the older Call of Duties and stuff, and like playing with my friends in lobbies, you remember how much different that it used to be. And a lot of these kids that are kind of new to COD, that are coming in around like 2019, Cold War, they don't really remember what that was like. And those games were vastly different when it came to the matchmaking system. So as in older CODs, like the matchmaking, how it used to work was it was based on party and connection. So the skill-based system then would be, if you were in a party of 3 or more, it would match you against parties of 3 or more. And then it would base it off connection. So that's kind of how SBMM worked with that. And now, obviously, the system we have now is more of an algorithm that nobody's really sure how it works. I did a ton of research in early Warzone 1, testing with VPNs to see if I could kind of dial in what SBM is and how it works. And what was nice is I had the API, because they shared it then, obviously. And you could use COD Tracker. So I was able to do things purposely to test it, to try to alter the numbers, which we did pretty well. I mean, we spent weeks doing it and we got a pretty good feel for it. And one thing we noticed was that VPNs were very effective in circumventing it. But it was, the thing is, if you're around like a 1 KD or under, it didn't make much of a difference, right? But for somebody like me who was a 4.9 KD, it made my lobbies feel tremendously different. And the friends that played with me, they actually, they could have a good time and things. And it changed it a lot. And I think that groups that have differentiating skill levels, that is who it affects the most. People who are around the same skill level that play in a group together, they don't feel it as much for sure. And VPN's a hot topic because, like, we're at this like crossroads where some people are looking at it as like, oh, is it cheating, or is it okay because what they're doing is also manipulating matchmaking? And I say yes and no there, because I think in a way it depends on how you use it. I mean, if you're using it to play with your friends and just have a good time, I don't see a problem with it. Now, if you're using it in a kill race tourney, yeah, you're cheating, and that should be looked down upon, and you should get blacklisted from a tourney for doing anything like that. And I'm not gonna say any names, but there's some people out there that who have done that. You know who you are, and it definitely don't do that. If we had the API tracker, it's easy to see. So like somebody like myself that has like a 4.9, we were able to pretty commonly pull like average lobbies at 0.8 to 1.0, which in Call of Duty, the average KD is about a 0.8, pretty close to it.
Okay.
So that's the crossroads, that we're at with it. Is just like, what do we, I think putting the pressure on COD to change the matchmaking to where it's actually more enjoyable is the right thing to do. I just felt like I made a video sharing, really explaining how VPN works in detail and how it breaks the matchmaking. Because I felt that just like the whole player base deserved to be able to have fun with their friends again instead of being subjected to an algorithm that isn't looking out for you. It's not looking out for your fun. It's literally there just to make that company money. They don't care about you.
Yeah. So I want to jump in real quick. I'm gonna rewind a little bit because,
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of folks out there, they hear the term VPN, and there's a lot of mythos that exists around what a VPN is, how it works, what it does. I want to delve into that a little bit, and I'll have you kind of backfill some of the spots I miss on this. But so for those who aren't familiar with what a VPN is, VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. It is essentially it is a way for your computer to mask where it actually is in the world and where it's sending it, and control where it sends its data. So like on the internet, like when you log into the internet, you have to think of the internet kind of like the hub and spoke of like Southwest Airlines, where they have like big places, like big centers that all their flights fly to, and then they have little flights that go elsewhere. And that's kind of how the internet handles data in a lot of ways, right? You get on wherever you are, and your information gets sent to a big data center, which then gets sent to the next big data center over the large, the large backbone pipes that they have, and then from there it uses local networks to get sent elsewhere. So when you log in with a VPN, on its surface, what it does is it actually just it tells the network that you actually are somewhere else, or that you want to route your data through a certain part of the world that wouldn't normally be considered as the most efficient. And then that, so there's a lot of reasons why someone would have a VPN. One of the big ones that people have it is for privacy, right? We've all seen streamers get doxxed, right? Nadia got doxxed. A couple of other pros got doxxed. Some big stream, is it Aiden Ross or Speed or one of those guys gets doxxed like almost quarterly, it feels like. And a lot of that is it's easy enough to figure out where they are, right? By you can go and you can check their IPs, you can hunt them down through that way. So as a protection, what a lot of people will do is they'll create a VPN, so that if somebody goes and says, where is this person connecting from, it'll say they're connecting from like Sweden, and really they live in LA. And so in a lot of ways, VPNs, so they have a very legitimate purposes. So I think a lot of gamers who aren't tech savvy, they hear VPN and all they associate it with is cheating in Warzone 1, right? Cheating in Caldera, getting bot lobbies in Caldera. And so, I want to kind of dispel some of these rumors or some of these ideas and just be clear about like what a VPN is, what it does, how it works, and then I want to apply that to Warzone and say like, all right, here's applications in which a VPN is very useful to us and is very legit. And then here's uses like, using it in a kill race for money, where a VPN is probably not kosher, we'll put it.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, so in the form of gaming, right? When people say that they're using a VPN, there's really kind of two methods. One is to locate yourself somewhere else so that Call of Duty thinks you're playing, you're logging in from Antarctica or something, right? Which I believe happened in the first World Series of Warzone. Correct me if I'm wrong. Someone was playing from Antarctica, allegedly. And then,
Where there's no COD servers, obviously.
Obviously. Or anybody with an internet connection. And then there is, so that's like you're relocating yourself to somewhere to try and generate a better lobby. And then there's a different kind, and there's different ways of doing it. And I know you'll be able to talk in more detail, but there's ways of indicating where, like what servers you want to connect to. So geofencing is the phrase of basically saying, me, for example, I'm in California, and it's like, I don't want to play servers in Argentina, right? Like, or in Texas or in New York, because my ping goes to crap. So it would be a way for me to, for example, say I only want to play on California servers because I get the best connection. Or I only want to play in servers on the West Coast, right? Or servers in the US. In Europe, they do this pretty commonly, where it's like you don't want to get sent to Asian servers. You want to get sent to like London servers, right? So you'll geofence like Western Europe. So kind of two different ways of looking at the matchmaking. And then when you do that, it can at times have an effect on matchmaking. And Warzone 1 was definitely more prevalent than Warzone 2. But, why don't you delve in a little bit between, geofencing and kind of in those nuances? Because I know you're going to be a little more.
Yeah, and I'll kind of get into detail too with like kind of how that works. So like with how a VPN turns off SBMM in a sense for Call of Duty is it kind of ties into what I was talking about earlier with the algorithm. So basically what it does, it puts you on a server or a location where they don't have a lot of servers. So, and then the COD return server that's basically reading that information says, oh, I'm not going to be able to find him a match within 60 seconds. Oh my God, he might quit the game and not buy a bundle tomorrow. Shit, I have to put him in a match. So it panics and then it fills the match with people that have very, very normal stats and sometimes very high stats, but it basically turns off the SBMM and it fills you into a lobby. Okay, so that's kind of how that works. And then with the geofence, what that does is it basically allows you to select the servers, just like Sub One was saying, and keeps you. It basically fences. It creates a virtual fence, and it won't let connections from outside of that connect. So it won't put you on a server. Say, for example, like I'm in Cleveland, right? So if I were to geofence to the Illinois server, so I get a reasonable ping, it won't be putting me in Cali where I get, 110. Which when I'm playing people that are iridescent in top 250, I stand no chance at 110 ping. So it's real nice to be able to put yourself on that connection. So that's how that works. And that I think the geofence is a good option. It's actually mind blowing to me that they don't just let us choose servers. Many games do.
Mm-hmm. Or at least geographical regions.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially in a game where connection is king. I mean, you're talking time to kill is milliseconds.
Yeah.
500 milliseconds on some guns, and 100 ping is half a second, so that's 500 milliseconds there. So on 100 ping, you're already at a half a second disadvantage from the person shooting you.
Yeah. What were you saying, Jay?
No, I was just going to say, look at Fortnite. You can choose your servers. Whether it's North, I believe, what is it that you can choose? North America East, North America West. I think North America Central. They let you choose which servers. It's really weird. Actually, it's not weird to me as far as why Call of Duty won't let you do that. It's because
SBMM wouldn't work if they did.
Correct. They don't want that algorithm being broken. And Cap, I've been out there talking about SBMM along with you over the last few weeks, just as I've kind of been in a personal blender. And, I've come to the conclusion that in large part, it is because of the way this algorithm is working, plus some dumb plays on my part. But it just seems like it's unrelenting as far as that goes. And, I used to be anti VPN. It used to piss me off, when people talk about, I dropped 40 in this lobby, and it's like, yeah, okay, you VPN'd into a Bangladesh lobby and dropped 40 on dudes who barely have thumbs. So, big deal. But then the more I've thought about it and the more, we start looking at the algorithm and how it's working and just how much psychology and retention and manipulation has come into the equation, and fun is completely out. It's not about, like, I think
fun is not a factor.
Yeah. It's not about our fun anymore. It's about retention and spending money. And that's why I've kind of loosened up my stance on that, because I appreciate what you're doing, because I know you're not doing it so you can go stomp bots. And that's a common misconception, I think. I think a lot of content creators use that to go stomp bots for their content. But dudes like yourself that are, high tier players, y'all just want to be able to hop on and play with your buddies that maybe are like Sub and I, who have, a 0.83 or whatever at the moment. On
most of my friends are under a 1 KD, like most of my close friends, like I do play with like demon players, but I mean, most of my friends are just casual gamers. They just want to get on, eat an edible, have a beer, and just play some video games,
We don't encourage any illicit drug use if that's not legal in your area.
Legal in the state.
Hey, exactly.
Go ahead.
So, yeah. So anyway, but yeah, I think it's a conversation that I think there needs to be a genuine ability to have it. And, I think we've conditioned ourselves as players, both, on both sides of the equation, in a lot of ways, as looking at things black and white and not a lot of nuance, right? It's either good or it's bad, right? It's right or it's wrong. And the more that I've had this conversation with different people at different skill levels, not just with, VPNs and whatnot, but with other topics, the more people are extreme in their ideas, right? Like,
most people think they get bot lobbies every time. That's just not how it works.
Yeah. So I think I want this conversation to be a conversation that is had more frequently than it is, because I think it's healthy for the player base. I think it's healthy for the community. And honestly, I think it has the ability to bring more change to the game if we do it right. So that's one of the big reasons that I think, that I want to talk about this more, and especially, as hopefully Activision continues to open up about their SBMM formula and their criteria and what they, the considerations that they have for how they do matchmaking. Because the more we know, the more we, and I mean, look, the blog post was a great first step. It's the first time they've published the phrase skill-based and matchmaking in the same sentence, much less in the same piece of paper, right? And so I think that it's important, to encourage them to continue to open up and also to see that as, hey, they've confirmed a lot of things that we already knew, right? They didn't tell us anything new that was groundbreaking, but they confirmed a lot of stuff that we'd kind of suspected. And now the next step is like, well, what can we do knowing that information? And I think talking about a VPN here, and understanding what it does and how it works and why and when it should be used is important. Because if like it's been said, like Jay said, like, if your whole goal is, hey, I want to go set the world record and drop 75, 80 kills in a lobby of 0.2s who, half of them don't even have thumbs, much less know how to use them. Like that's not the situation we want to create. We want to create a scenario in which, you and I can play together, and I'm not sitting here just pinging the buy station the whole time because I get smoked the second I turn around.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the whole point of them, is to just give like people an enjoyable experience again. And yeah, I mean, you're right. If you're going to go out there and try to set world records doing it, it's going to be pretty obvious, because good players know what real lobbies look like. And if you're actually like a competitive player and you're trying to improve and you're trying to get into the competitive space, playing VPN lobbies is going to do nothing but dull your skill, keeping that sword sharp is important, and the only way to do that is playing players of a high skill caliber. But like, if you're just trying to have fun, it's 100%. I don't see anything wrong with it. I'm not saying though that we should take the same outlook when it comes to cheating and everybody should go buy cheats. Don't do that. That is bad. That is we're not taking that route. That's bad. Let's not do that. But yeah, no, I don't see anything wrong with it to enjoy your time with your friends. And considering the fact that like Call of Duty started as a social game. I mean, let's be real. It's got a major competitive background, but at the end of the day, it's always been a social game. It's always been a game you hop on with your friends, get into a 6-man, and you go play pubs and have fun and talk a little crap. And that's the legacy of Call of Duty, And even some things like that, they've kind of taken away. Like you can't even banter in game chat, or you get com banned anymore. Like that's like part of COD. That's building blocks of the game.
It's never happened to me.
I got my first calm warning the other day, and I put the video up on Twitter and TikTok. But the thing to me about the algorithm and just how it's working, and I've said this before, I never struggled in Call of Duty until 2019. That is, to me, when I could tell a very stark difference in just the way the matchmaking was working from 2019 now. And it seems like maybe Cold War wasn't quite as bad, but it's especially the Infinity Ward games. And then this one, the matchmaking is hell too. But the biggest thing I would like to see them take out of it is the recent games part of it.
Yep. Or make it definitely goes off your recent 5 to 10 games.
Yeah, because in multiplayer, dude, if I have a good few games, I'm then putting lobbies for the next hour or two, getting shit on by dudes like you. It's not fun.
The thing I noticed too was from the testing is over your last I wish we had the API now so I could see how it's working now. But how it worked in Warzone 1, right? So part of the API, one of the cool things you could see wasn't just KD. It was score per minute. And also, you could see time spent moving, okay? And I one thing I can verifiably tell you, time spent moving around the map is 100% a factor in SBMM. So if you play aggressive and you run around the map a lot and you like to get mixy, good luck in 5 games. It's gonna get real tough, and it's gonna match you against people that are doing the same thing. And it's crazy because like the different play styles in a team of 6 people, and especially so I'm like a sweaty player, right? So I move around a lot. I get pretty mixy. But my friends that are more casual, they play kind of slow. Unfortunately, if I'm hosting and I'm playing like that, it's going to go off like the higher stat players in the lobby, and it's going to put you against 6 other people that play like that, and it makes it hell on all your friends. It's a horrible experience that it goes like that. And the thing I'm wondering now is it seems like it almost got tuned up in Modern Warfare 3, so I'm sure they're using a very similar algorithm, if anything. But that time spent moving, I thought it was very interesting, and score per minute. So if you have a couple of games where you do really well, it's going to be a disaster. And the way it stacks the odds against you is what irritates me the most. And a lot of the times, it won't even just stack people against you that are far better than you. It will stack people on your team that are also far worse than you, while having really good players on the other team. And it puts you into a situation where it's almost impossible to enjoy that experience. And it's almost impossible to have a good time because even like your team won't have microphones. And so apparently it tries to match you with people that talk a lot or talk less as well from other people who have done testing.
That's interesting. And you know what's funny is like one of my best friends, his own wife won't play with him because the lobbies are so fucking brutal. Like she won't play games. Like his own wife won't play with him because he's so good. And that really sucks. That kind of, like you said, this was supposed to be like a social thing, and it just doesn't really feel like that. And it feels like when you do hop on, whether it's Warzone or multiplayer, the one thing I do want to point out though, and I've seen this kind of tossed out a few times on Twitter, and I know he's controversial, but I actually agree with him here. When J-Rock says that his lobbies are just as sweaty for him as yours are for you, he's not saying the quality of player is the same. What he's saying is you sweating in your lobby against people equal to your KD is the same thing as sweating him in his lobbies against people of our KD.
Like, no, he's definitely right. It still feels shitty for them too.
Yeah.
No matter your skill. Yeah, 100%. I agree.
So one thing that I'll point out on that example that I think is worth considering, and it's It is where I struggle, like in this conversation, because I see both sides of it, and I see both sides very well because I've been on both sides. Like I've had really good games, and I've played with good players that have carried me along, and we do well against inferior lobbies, and I've also been in lobbies that I have no business being in, and have just been absolutely dragged in them. And I think there's something about when you get to the upper echelon of players that the tolerance for error drops to zero or even below zero. And that's something that in like J-Rock's lobbies, for example, like the lower tier lobbies, and I'm not saying J-Rock's like, I get these sim lobbies.
Me
The
too.
the room for error is higher, right? And so I think there's, do I have to put the maximum effort in to be successful in my lobbies as I do in if I were to play with you, or I've played with some other top players before, and just absolutely had a miserable time. Learned a lot, but could not keep up, right, without trying really hard. And I think the challenge is that, like, in my lobbies, when I make a stupid decision, I can get out of that decision half the time, right? Like I have the ability to recover from it. So, like, for example, I posted a video this morning. I don't, it hasn't algorithm hasn't found it yet, but it's like a guy was trying to parachute on my building. I sniped him, cracked him, and then jumped off and chased him. And a guy on the hill overlooking us is putting shots on me. He, hit me multiple times with a sniper rifle, or hit me at least once with a sniper rifle, and a couple of other times. So he was trying to hit me, and if I was in a high skill lobby, like, he would have hit me, and it would have been just me and his teammate down on the ground next to each other instead of me escaping, and being able to return to my same position and actually fight that guy. And I think that's the sort of situation that I don't, from what I've seen, you probably wouldn't have been able to get through that, right? Like, you have two guys pushing one a high ground. He doesn't miss that often.
Right.
And I think there's something about not having that even though I'm still playing at the maximum of my limits to make the play work, right? That decision making just change. It requires such a higher level of smarts, I think, of game sense, we'll call it, to even be able to play, at your level against other people at your level, right? So I think there's something wrong with how the skill-based matchmaking handles the top tier player base. And at the same time, it's like on the crosshand, like on the opposite side.
On the opposite end of it too.
Yeah, but on the opposite side, like, if you're in my lobby, right, you're having a feast off of most of the players that I play with and that I come across, right? And it's like my ability to defeat you in that game is going to basically require me to chuck a random throwing knife into the air and have it, get lucky.
Which apparently works sometimes.
And so, I think there's this element of the conversation where it's like, lower skill players like me and Jay and J-Rock and countless others that don't like VPNs or have been conditioned to not like VPNs because we run into you in our lobbies where we don't feel like you should be there. Is like, we're talking, like, we've got you there, and you're sharing your experiences about how sweaty it is, and we're sharing, to us it feels just as sweaty, and we end up, I think we're all talking past each other. It's kind of where I'm trying to go on this.
100%.
It's hard for us to have a basis of like a baseline to this conversation because our experiences are very different, right? Like, and I know there's I don't have the right words for this, like, but it's just, I can talk about how sweaty and miserable. Yeah. Mm-hmm. My perspective is so miserable when I have to deal with people that are significantly higher than my skill level on a regular basis, and for you, it's, you can be just as miserable at your same skill level. And I think that's something that's different. I know Jay has something to go on to talk in on that.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's the whole thing. So, I posted about the SBMM a while back, and people were coming in my comments like, oh, you just want to like stomp on bots. Haha, joke's on you. The way I've been playing, I've been a bot anyway. But no, that's not the point. I don't have a problem playing people of my own skill level. It's the fact that it throws me into lobbies that are above my skill level. That's the unforgiving part. And I don't know, Cap, if it was you or someone else that said it, but it's almost like for the majority of the players, it wants to keep you at like a 1 KD and a 1 win loss.
It
And
does.
it's that, to me, that's just so goddamn manipulative, man. Like I said, I never struggled in Call of Duty until that philosophy came to be, the main thing for them. So that's what's frustrating to me. And that's why, like, I agree with you on your work with the VPN stuff. And, I think that it's something that maybe we need to all be considering and talking for and advocating for on a more consistent basis to get them to make changes, because the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
It does. And the thing is like, I encourage, and I really do want to encourage everybody to continue to speak up on it, because like it worked. I mean, look what happened. And we all spoke up and we got them to talk about it. I mean, that's,
yeah.
hold on, let's dogs have the squeaky toy. But yeah, we got them to say something, and we did that as a community. Not me, not anybody solo, us as the COD community. And that's the thing. We have to stick together, right? We've been so busy fighting each other over the last 2 years about our differences that we've forgotten that we can work together to make changes. At the end of the day, it's like we need to stop hating on each other's community and pull together and have each other's back. Because right now, Activision does not have our back. And that is a fact. And the thing is with VPN, it's like, like you said, you don't mind playing sweaty players. And you just like, I love playing sweaty players, man. I ran into IQ the other day. It was fun. I played against him in World Series of Warzone. I love playing sweaty players, but not every game. Not every single game. If I want to play sweaty players every game, I'll go play ranks play, and I play top 250 players every single match. But sometimes I just want to play with my friends and relax. And I think everybody shares that exact same want. And I think it's something we need to push for, because there's no reason that they can't give us that. There's really not. And I think the only way. Yeah, and I think the only way for them to do that is just to kind of, for the most part, in pubs, remove SBMM and have a very protected bracket. People that are like 0.3 KD and lower, that have like motor skill issues and actual disabilities that need to be protected. They actually did have something similar to that back in the day. It's called boot camp. And until you got to like level, was it 25? Until you kind of learned how to play the game, it would put you would have to go into boot camp to learn how to play. And then once you reach level 25, it would pull you out so that you started learning. You know what's funny is some of the absolute best players in the entire world were born in no SBMM lobbies. People like Scump wouldn't exist if there was SBMM back then. He wouldn't have had a chance to grow as a player. Having no SBMM, that's what challenges you, because sometimes you run into great players. Sometimes you run into not so great players. And having those different, and what's weird is about it is running into those different skill levels, it allows you to build a playbook yourself. Because if you run into the same players all the time, you only learn to play against one type of player. So that's another reason why SBMM it's not good for anyone. It's not good for casual players. It's not good for sweaty players. At the end of the day, fun is not a factor.
I think one of the problems with, especially with the lower skill players running into sweaty players, is it's really hard to tell. It's hard to tell who's just a player who's naturally better than you, who's a player who doesn't belong in your lobby, who happens to be in either through broken matchmaking or whatever. But
100%.
there's another. It's also hard to tell like if they're playing clean or not, right? And I think this is one of those areas where like a lot of people conflate playing on a VPN with playing with cheats. And I think that's one of the things that when you really think about, how the COD community reacts to skill-based matchmaking, it's almost like this idea that it's going to protect you from cheaters. And I think that, there's also this issue where a lot of players, they don't understand what cheating is, really, like, we all know that engine owning is a cheater, and cheaters are terrible. And that, it's probably the only thing that the majority of the COD community will all agree on, is that cheaters, suck. But I think it's one of those things where it's hard to, it's hard to really know what you're looking at, and so I've spent an absurd amount of time investigating cheating, not in the bad boy, whatever, whatever cheat hunter guy, on YouTube,
Rider,
right?
as we call him.
Yeah. So like that's not it. Like I spend a great deal of time, and I've done a lot of research and talking to people, kind of back channels, to understand what cheats are. What do they offer? What can they do? What is within the realm of what a cheater can do in game, and what would that look like? And I think, in my opinion, it's helped me identify suspect behavior more so than usual.
Oh, 100%. It's
And
good to do your own research into it.
and I think it's one of those things that I think deserves to have a more nuanced conversation to understand. What are cheaters? Where are they? How do they show up in your game? And really what's going on that side of things. So I know you're like me. You have the same drive to not just scream cheaters suck into the void, but to understand it and look for it when you try and spot it when you can. It's coming off of a free weekend from a certain provider. What are some things that when you look at this topic, like where are you in this understanding of it? Like I know you've got some ideas and some stuff that you're starting to drive in on.
I think as we had Ricochet introduced, right? What was it, 2021? And it took a year for that, which, I mean, that was a pretty impressive development time for a security measure like that. An anti-cheat is not a small thing. Anybody that knows anything about software development will tell you it's internet security is one of the most difficult things when it comes to coding. But I will say I do strongly feel that Activision and Call of Duty, they really did fail us when it comes to the anti-cheat, because it is marketed as a kernel level anti-cheat, and it is somewhat true, but for the most part, it is not. Because how the anti-cheat works for Call of Duty now is, does it run at a kernel level? Yes, but there's different levels to that. Just put it in numbers perspective. You got, say, level 0 is the base, is the level where it has full access. It doesn't run at that, and for it to truly be effective, it would have to, because a true kernel anti-cheat, when you close your game, it's still running. Like, for example, Valorant has Vanguard, and that is always running, no matter what. When you boot up your PC, if you close that, you have to restart your PC, and that's true kernel anti-cheat. So when you close Call of Duty, the anti-cheat closes too. So it makes it real easy for people to inject, and that's the unfortunate side of it. And realistically, until we have a true kernel level anti-cheat, it's just not going to fix anything. We're going to continue to have cheating problems, and because it runs that way, it also makes it super easy for cheaters to come back.
Well, and it's not just that it runs, so the kernel level. So for anybody who doesn't understand computers very well, basically your computer has different levels of authority, right? So if you've got a PC, if you work, for people that work with computers, right, at work, you're given permissions, right? You have an administrator level that like gives you permissions on what you can install on your computer and what you can do. If you've got kids in school, same thing, right? Like the school gives them permissions, right? And then the school gets permissions because the operating system gives them permissions, right? But like you as a top level user, you're limited on what you can do without kind of going above and beyond, right? And then the computer, the Windows itself has certain areas that are basically more or less off limits unless you go through extensive work on your end to get into them. So you can't like delete half of Windows by mistake, right? That's kind of the goal. And so it's like, if you think of like a pyramid, right? You have, the base user at the bottom can do kind of whatever they want within the limits, but it's like an inverted pyramid, right? So the base user has smallest amount of permissions. They can, limited on what they can do. And the farther into the kernel you go, the more permissions and the more things that you can mess with in the system. And so what happens with these cheats is that they go, they say, well, we're going to operate, we're going to be first boot. We're going to be the first thing that loads in against, other anti-cheats. With Call of Duty, even though when it's running, it's very good at stopping injection. It's stopping, if you run Call of Duty and then you try and load a cheat program, it's very good at stopping that cheat program and recognizing that you're trying to interface with the game. But what happens is, if the cheat program is loaded first, it can prevent the anti-cheat from booting up, right? And what
Correct.
they do is they prevent the way it works is that the anti-cheat loads up, verifies that no cheats are running, and then the game loads up. And so what the cheat providers are doing is they are basically loading first, and then when it detects the anti-cheat booting up, it blocks the anti-cheat and sends a false positive to the game and says, anti-cheat's running, all clear, right? And then the game boots and you're in and your cheats are active. Okay? And the problem is that if the anti-cheat shuts down at all, then you're faced with the cheats can get in, right? That's how it works.
Yep.
It's also how it's literally how Call of Duty and Fortnite are able to detect the Cronus Zen, right? They look for a specific driver that the Zen can loads with, and when they detect that, they know you've got the software going. And so if you take that driver off and you block that driver, it goes undetected. Okay, that's how they get around this. And so the anti-cheat, when you have a kernel level anti-cheat, which is what Valorant is, what we do, and it's always on, right? Like it's a first boot, right? So the first thing Windows does is it turns on the anti-cheat. And now I can tell you where, from a security standpoint, I won't play Valorant because it has an always on anti-cheat, because it monitors everything. All right. So this is the flip side. This is why they didn't go there. Do you really trust Activision to not monitor your Amazon spending or what websites you visit when you're in private mode, which is not private? Don't use that. Like, do you trust them not to peek at that? Because they have access to it. That's the whole point, right? That's the whole reason why there's different levels of security on your system, right? So that only the most trusted people get access to everything. Only the most trusted software gets access to everything. And Activision has, if we give them access to everything all the time, all your banking, all your transactions, all of your, your dirty messages that you send, everything you do on Tinder, all of that is available to them. And we're basically trusting that they're not looking. Right?
Yeah, that is that's definitely can be a dangerous thing, because if somebody gets root access to your PC, that can be very bad if it's compromised. That can be a very bad thing.
And so I say that because I want to be clear. Like, there's reasons why Ricochet works the way it works, and there's also reasons why it doesn't work sometimes, a lot. And part of it is that there's a trust factor, right? If you're going to give a software company complete access to everything you do on your PC every time you load into it, right? There's got to be a really good trust factor there.
Yeah.
And so, so when people say, why can't Ricochet do what it does? And this is why. Because when Caldera was out, when things were going, I don't know if the trust factor was there for Activision. If they had told you that, hey, we're just going to watch everything you do on your PC from the moment you boot it up to the moment you turn it off, and we'll have dial home privileges on that, and you won't be able to monitor that because we're at a higher level than your monitoring software is. But
it's a double-edged sword, I feel like. Unfortunately, I feel like we've reached a time in technology where, to stop cheating, especially with very popular games like that, it's somewhat a risk that we might have to deal with to play some of these games online, just because the cheating's become so popular and there's so much money to be made with cheats for people, like, cheesing tournaments and stuff. It's just it's a double-edged sword. Are there other things that they could do to make the anti-cheat better without reaching that level of kernel? Yeah, no, there definitely is. There's a lot of things they could do. They could be reverse engineering software, detecting files that way. Hell, they could be looking for. There's only like 4 or 5 spoofers that work really well. They could just detect those. Just the spoofer alone, just detecting those would catch most cheaters. Server side, almost every cheater uses an unlock tool. And for those of you that aren't familiar with what an unlock tool does, so Call of Duty, when it runs on your RAM, on your computer. Your RAM is basically where program information is running. So when you open a browser tab, for example, that's running on your RAM. So it basically alters the RAM and it unlocks all of the attachments and things of that sort. And server side, that could be detected. They could catch like 90% of cheaters just by detecting the unlocked server side. Then that brings me to a point. It's just like there are so many things that they could be doing proactively to be catching far more cheaters, and they're very simple to do. For example, many other games out there, if you were to try to use an unlock tool, it would flag you immediately. It would be so fast.
Yeah.
And it's concerning that isn't being done.
Yeah, Jay, you had your hand up for a minute.
Well, so when you talked about access and, the company having access to your device, it made me think about, I don't know if you remember this, but when the Xbox One was coming out, they were talking about, I think the base model, like the original model was supposed to come with the Kinect camera, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that camera was supposed to be on the entire time. Like it was going to be functioning the entire time. And there was a huge, huge uproar about it. So then Microsoft then in turn decided to go ahead and start selling models without that camera because there was an uproar about invasion of privacy. I mean, I was actually not going to buy an Xbox because of that. I'm like, I don't want that. I want that privacy. I don't want to be being watched all the time. And now I fucking stream. So go figure, right? But yeah, no, the world of these cheats and the anti-cheats is very interesting. I don't know a whole lot about how all of the systems work, but I can tell you I've played Fortnite and Apex, and I don't know that I've ever run into a cheater. Now, I have run into cheaters here, and I'm going to give you a full confession, Cap. I don't run into cheaters that often, man. And it's not necessarily because I don't know what to look at. I mean, I can tell when things are sus. They're just not really in my lobbies that much. And I don't know why. And the crazy thing is when I do see them, I'll report them, but I don't get anything back. But yet I got a fucking instant comm ban warning back. So it doesn't make sense.
Sounds about right.
We're more interested in moderating, and making sure people's feelings are hurt than getting people up out of the game that are cheating.
I actually have a theory on that.
I'd love
That's
to
why
hear
you don't
it.
see them. So and this would make sense if I were them. This is what I would do, and it would make sense from a business standpoint. I have a theory that I had tested back in Warzone 1 as well, and I see a lot here. And it's that, so like when we did VPN, right, we would end up in lobbies with people, very new accounts, and we'd run into cheaters quite often, right? But when we would VPN, we wouldn't run into them that often. And I think it's that the anti-cheat very heavily currently relies on reports. I think that's no big secret at this point with the shadow bans and things of that matter. It's a very, very report-based anti-cheat. All anti-cheats are, but Ricochet is a bit more report-based than many other anti-cheats. And I think the reason that they're putting suspected cheaters and cheaters in higher tier lobbies is that they know high tier players are going to spot them faster. And they know that they're going to be able to report those people, and the accuracy rate of those reports are going to be far higher. So they'll be more effective at banning them. It would make sense to toss them in higher tier lobbies for that reason. It keeps them away from the 80 percentile player base, so they are happy and don't have to deal with them. And the high tier player base are going to spot the cheaters and be able to get the reports in. That's my theory.
That's a dual-edged problem or issue, though, because, all right, so now you're dealing with cheaters all the time, and when you're not, you're having to sweat your ass off, so here's where the VPN comes in, But what's funny is so Sub 1 and I are virtually the same skill level, right? I'm in Texas, he's in California. I rarely see cheaters, but when he plays, he sees cheaters a lot. I wonder how much that has to do with geography and people VPNing from other parts of the world. So like my friends that I watch play in the UK, between the skill-based matchmaking and the cheaters, they're completely off the game right now. But it was literally, if not every game, every other game, they were running into a squad full of cheaters with nuke skins. It was fucking unreal. And one of them is he's got a little over a 3 KD, something like that, and the other two not so much. But that's what they were dealing with. And he told me that he thought it was like people VPNing from Asia into the UK servers, specifically targeting those servers to come in and cheat in.
You know what the most common routed server is for cheat delivery?
What's that?
Illinois and Texas.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not going to say where that information came from, but I will say it's verifiable information from a not so legit boy that follows me on Twitter. But yeah, unfortunately, yeah. So Texas and like in California, those servers can be kind of cheater infested. But I don't know if location is as strong to do with it. It's like time of day definitely makes a difference. I can tell you that. If you really want to see your first cheater, play like 1 a.m. and later. And play with a sweaty friend. I don't know why. It's just like cheater hours. I don't know if they had like a convention every year and they're like, hey guys, let's cheat at like past 12. That's our time, right, guys? I don't know if that's just when it's the worst, but late night you'll see them more than you won't for sure.
I'll tell you what it is it is so Jay is on the money on part of it. So there's an entire industry related to cheating about creating accounts for sale. All right, especially Warzone accounts because they're free to make.
100%.
So what happens is in this, and there are certain this happens in China, and you can't play this game. This game is not allowed in China, but Chinese players play the game. And what they do, and and this is not exclusive to that, just as an example of like how.
Oh, you're talking about like country location? Yeah, no, China is pretty bad for cheating.
And so what happens is, you get these players and they create, they need to age accounts. So like in Warzone Ranked specifically, and in Warzone, now Modern Warfare, not Modern Warfare, Multiplayer Ranked, you have requirements of the account has to be a certain level, right? So it can't just be like the account has existed for a certain amount of time. It has to have been playing for a certain amount of time. So the testing that I've done on this and that I've seen from other people that have run into it, and I've kind of gotten to watch them because they post about it on Twitter, is Ricochet, I think, pays attention to you intently based on different characteristics, right? So like, and I believe they talked about it in the blog post a little bit when it came out, and I'd have to refresh myself on that. But essentially, there's like a trust factor on an account, right? So a brand new account has zero trust.
Obviously,
the game doesn't know who you are. It doesn't know why you created the account, and so basically, Ricochet pays a lot of attention to you. And the longer you play, and the more consistently you play, then the less attention it pays to you. And I think this is why cheating I think this is why different skill levels run into cheats in different ways and different time periods as well. Because if you go in and you start playing, you've never played before, right? You're going to be terrible. You're going to go games probably without getting a single kill. And then as you play, you will have like a gradual, there'll be like an improvement graph, right? Let's say
linear graph, rising graph.
Yeah. So the more you play, the better you get, the more your skill goes up, right? And so they can they'll chart that over time, right? So like if you're following a very predictable pattern of like I start out and I'm terrible, and then I start doing well, over time, like okay, so you're improving, congratulations, doing good at the game, carry on. But if you have a brand new account and your first game in, you drop 70, something's fishy,
Ricochet's like,
right?
that's kind of sus. Level 1?
Yeah. And so what happens is, cheaters get banned on a fairly routine basis, right? Either through a ban wave or they screw up and they get caught and they get reported, or however Ricochet finds them. So what ends up happening is they have to start a new account, right? And so what used to happen is, someone would rage hack, they'd get banned, they'd start a new account, they'd go right back to it, and they'd play for a while. And what people found is that you can only do that for so long before it gets like just your accounts are just gone immediately. Like first game on, you're out, right?
Now aged accounts are the rave.
Exactly. So what happens is they go and they'll spend $5-10 to buy an account that's already level 60 and averages a certain number of kills per game. And then they can go in and they can start running their cheats. And so what happens is you get these account farms, a lot of them done with cheats, and they have a certain number of kills per game that they're supposed to get, right? And so you end up with this weird scenario where the bottom players of the game see cheaters at a high rate, and the top players see cheaters at a high rate. And as the bell curve of skill, like, so there's like if you've ever seen the graph, there's a bell curve, and in the middle is like the most common KD, which is like a 0.7, 0.8. And then it's, and then it goes down in the long tail of good players, and then, the short tail of bad players. And so as you go up the bell curve into the middle of the KD bracket, you see fewer cheaters because they've either gone immediately express lane to the top of the charts because they're just really good, allegedly, or they're aging the account for sale at the bottom level, right? So someone like Jay here, who plays very consistently, right, in his 1 to 0.9 KD range, he's not going to necessarily see a lot of cheaters because they don't play in that bracket, right? Versus me, where I have some of the guys that I play with are like, I play with a couple of 0.3s, okay, 0.3s, 0.4s, right? So we end up seeing the cheaters playing in those brackets because they're aging the account, right? They're getting the account to a certain point. So it's like, and I see this behavior routinely where like a guy will just suddenly play out of his mind. He knows where everybody is, and then he just all of a sudden plays like a bot after he gets like 6 kills. Like he wipes our entire team brilliantly, and then he doesn't see the guy standing in front of him, right? And it's like, it's highly suspect, right? That he hit his limit for the day, toggles it off, and then just keeps playing until he dies out and he starts over. And I think it's one of those things that people don't understand what's going on. Like they think, oh, cheaters are just there to rage hack as many kills as possible. And that's, I don't think that's true anymore. I think, the cheaters they've gotten smarter. They've gotten better at hiding it. They've had to. The aimbot has gotten miles better versus the headlock it used to be.
I got something to add to that.
Yeah,
that's very true. Because there is a cheater that follows me. I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to give him too much attention. He probably will watch this. So sorry, man, can't do it. Appreciate all the info you give me, but I still can't do it. You're still a cheater at the end of the day. He has been cheating for over a year without a ban. He cheats with walls and he stream snipes big streamers. And if you were to watch him play, you would never know. Never know. Even me. And I'm damn good at spotting it. Never know. He is that good at hiding walls. It's actually insane. And that's just, most cheaters are just using like walls or 2D radar now. They're not rage hacking or using aimbot. It's because they get caught really fast. And even if they get caught, it doesn't matter because, I mean, they can buy a new account for $5, an aged account, like max level, all attachments unlocked.
Yep. That's Jay. What'd you have?
I was just going to ask Cap. Let me ask you this, man. How much do you think perks like Bird's Eye and High Alert and those things contribute to masking cheats, if at all?
I think some, probably, yeah. I would think so, because you remember cheaters in Verdansk would try to hide it by running the heartbeat sensor.
Yeah, the infinite heartbeat sensor that never fucking died ever.
Yep. And they would always use that. That would be one way that they would try to hide it, would be with the heartbeat sensor. So you'll definitely see cheaters running stuff like that to kind of definitely mask it. The smarter cheaters anyway. The dumb ones just, they're a little more blatant. They don't last. Yep. Yeah, that's the thing. It's the ones that are dumb are the ones that get banned. The smart ones, they're the ones that keep going.
Mm-hmm.
What joy though? Like I don't understand like how you can get joy out of doing that. Like what motivates somebody, Cap, to cheat? What's the motivation?
So, I've talked to so many cheaters over the last like 2 or 3 years just because like I was curious on like how they ticked as well and like just kind of why they do what they do. It not 9 times out of 10 it's all bullshit. They're just cheating because a lot of them are cheating because they suck. Realistically, they suck, and through one form or another, they convinced themselves somewhere along the lines that it was their only option they had left, and they started cheating. A lot of them did, or watched, somebody's video on YouTube that also maybe thinks everybody cheats, and, so they started cheating. I'm not going to mention any names out there, and that's actually a pretty substantial reason there as well. But I think the biggest one is just that they're bad players who are pissed off at Call of Duty, and I think a lot of them took that route versus speaking up, and like they're fighting back, but it's not the right way.
Yeah,
it sucks because they're running everybody else a good time.
Yeah, I wonder too how much of that is that I mean, like you said at the top of the episode, there's a lot of money to be made in Call of Duty, right? Not
Oh
just
yeah,
tournaments, but
that's a different type of
streaming
cheater
and
there. Yeah, a
yeah,
whole different type of
and
cheater.
mm-hmm. and
Those
I,
those are cheaters that are really
yeah,
they're just not great people because some of these guys are they're going out there in tourneys and like if you do the math on it right. So if you go look at like these small tourney sites, like for example, what is it, Z League, and you got like CMGs, right? There's tournaments every night for like 100, $150, $200, which $200 these days, that's not a lot of money. They don't even pay the light bill.
Bread.
Yeah, loaf of bread, couple of gallons of gas, right? But now, I mean, you run those every night. Plus, you run wagers, and if you're cheating, right, you're winning. You're winning a lot, right? You're winning those all night long, every night. $200 attorneys. I mean, that starts adding up real quick.
$1,000, $1,400
a day,
a week.
Yeah,
I mean,
some of them are doing that a day.
Yeah. The other thing too, Cap, that I had happen when Modern Warfare 3 first came out, we were on sub base and there was a glitch to where you could get under the map. And so I this dude fucking does it and he ends up dropping a nuke on us. And so I get immediately in the lobby. I'm on my fucking game chat, just talking shit to these dudes. So to make the story short, they end up coming into my stream and start trying to troll me. Well, after a few hours of it, it was kind of hilarious and I was giving it back. We ended up actually having like just a regular conversation, they said some shit that was pretty funny about me looking like I had fetal alcohol syndrome, all kinds of shit like that. It was hilarious. I was fucking dying, dude.
That's actually insane.
I was dying. So anyway, I asked, I'm like, so why do you guys fucking do this? Do you guys do this on the regular? And what it is, it's a group of about 4 or 5 people. They will go around and exploit glitches, which to me is the same thing as cheating, just to piss people off. Like,
a lot of
some
cheaters
people
do it
like to watch the world burn.
Yep. I mean, a lot of them do it for that reason as well. That's what they have fun doing, is getting on and ruining everybody else's good time. Some of them do it for money. Some do it for their own enjoyment. There's not, at the end of the day, it's all bad reasons, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
I don't think there's one, and the problem is there's not one cheater, right? Like there's not one kind of cheater. There's many. There's so many different reasons why people will do it, and it's one of those things that I think. Oh, who was it that just had an interview where they were talking about this on their stream or something? How they cheated when they were younger, and
that's all that,
and it helped them learn the game, and then they, well, I guess they're off of it. They're off the sauce, but they learn how to be a better player through it. And I found that interesting. That it's like it's
probably like a 0.0000001%. That's a real rare.
Jay and I talked about this at one point, and I don't remember if it was in an episode or if it was just on the phone, about like, it's so easy to sit there and be like, I have zero tolerance. I have no room for any conversation about people who cheat, right? It's like you should just be banned from touching a computer for life, right? I hear stories like that, and I look around at like some of these people that get caught cheating, or I run into them cheating and I yell at them in prox chat. They're like 13, 12 maybe, like in that range. And it's like, it makes it hard, right, to sit there and say, hey, if you're cheating, like, you're just done forever, right? Damn, I hate cheating. I really want to turn the anger away from cheaters themselves, because it's kind of like getting mad at a drug addict for being addicted to drugs. It's like, yeah, you were stupid to do it in the first place, but now yelling at you doesn't help, right? And it's correct. Like, I want to hit. I want to know how to hit them where it hurts. Like, where can we hit the cheap? Where can we hit it? And I think the cheap providers are the number one. And I know you and I talked about this on the side about Activision's lawsuit, and some of these other ways that some of these other ways to do it. And I mean, short of like leaking their HQ to the Ukrainians and telling them it's a Russian covert op base, I would never do that. Allegedly.
I think that as far as like what to do with the cheaters, okay, obviously a 12-year-old, that's a whole different deal. But I think at the very least, and Sub, you and I have talked about this before, and I I'm not changing my mind on this, even though I'm not in the comp scene. If you are caught running cheats in comp play where there's money involved, you should never, ever be allowed to compete again, ever. I don't give a fuck what you do to try to redeem yourself or whatever. You want to go stream and be successful there, cool, whatever. But you are not going to compete again. And that's just my opinion on that.
And you should have to pay back the money that you won
Yes.
to the players you stole it from. And if you do not, then it should be, you should go to jail.
Because, yeah, it's fucking stealing, dude. That's exactly what it is.
Once you take something that's not yours, you become a criminal, whether you like it or not. That is a fact. And at that point, when you've stolen money by cheating, you are a criminal at that point, and you should pay that money back. And here's the thing: once you pay that money back, and you take some time, you could probably stream again. You could probably do content. You're not going to play comp again because nobody's going to trust you.
Nope.
But you could do content. I mean, there's some people who have done that. I look at Hoppa, for example. He was somebody who was kind of blatantly rage hacking back in Warzone, but he turned to content. He started talking about other cheaters and bringing light to it, and I respect that a lot.
Do you know why he did that? Like, so I've been curious about that too, because I've kind of heard that too. I don't really have any interactions with him very much. I think we've liked a post or two of each other's, but I've not played with him or interacted. But I mean, like, I'd be curious. Maybe this is a better question for him, but like, at what point did he say, you know what? This is fucked up. I don't need to be cheating. I'm going to try and start exposing people for cheating.
I think he was just kind of fed up with the game, from my understanding of it. He got to the point where that was pre-Ricochet.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, I mean, there was blatant rage hackers. So he just basically downloaded cheats. He's like, yeah, I'm just going to do it too. Fuck it. And that's kind of what he did. And then he started using what he had learned and started catching people that were stealing money and doing tournaments and things like that. I'm glad he did. I learned a lot from him. He taught me a lot of things, actually, what to look for. And, at the end of the day, though, that brings me to another point. And I used to call people, like you guys probably remember seeing it on my timeline. I've not been shy when it comes to people that I know are cheating, saying something about it.
Mm-hmm.
But starting this year, I kind of made like a New Year's resolution. I was like, I'm not going to do that anymore, because at the end of the day, for everybody you call out, there's 5 more to replace them. There'll be somebody else cheating that'll take their place. And the only real solution is for an anti-cheat that works. And that falls very heavily on Activision. And I think the only solution and way to move forward is for us, the player base, to put pressure on them to do something about it. Because that is, at the end of the day, the only real fix for it. And until that happens, I mean, it's just going to continue to be a problem.
Can we clarify something on one of your tweets that I saw? And Sub, I'm almost certain you saw this too, but you tweet, and I'm paraphrasing here, but you tweeted something regarding having a working anti-cheat, but the store always works, right? And I 100% agree with you. However, but I feel like we both should probably clarify this for people that are listening. We are fully aware that those are different teams that work on different things. It's more or less pointing out the priorities of Activision than it is an indictment on the development teams.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I feel very heavily. I feel upset because I look at the state of the game, and it's not just with the cheating. Like, many problems, the bugs, the servers being really terrible. I mean, we're running on 20 tick rate servers, man. That was standard 15 years ago. I mean, 15 years ago, there were games running 60 tick rate, And I look at the priority list of what they have going on, and it's so irritating to see new store packs being developed with more artistic talent than some of the maps in the game, I might add, that cost half the price of the game. Hello, Call of Duty. Get it together. Get the priorities right. Because at the end of the day, it's like, they wouldn't have to make all these bundles, right, to make extra money if the game was just good. Because if the game was just good, more people would buy it. And that is a fact.
So I'm going to throw this out there. I had a conversation off the record with somebody who worked in the system side of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked, it was about tick rate, because this came up it was, several months ago. And he had an interesting observation. So according to him, they have experimented with raising the tick rate of the servers. And it caused a unique problem, and it's unique in a lot of ways to Call of Duty because Call of Duty is so detailed. Well, it became an issue. Like it became one of those things they had to deal with. Like they had to do more of. But it essentially had to do with how people with bad internet, like not like with not fiber internet, basically, and how packet loss and their connection actually affected the game. And what he said was basically all the problems that we have with 20-tick servers right now. If your internet is dishing up lower than your ping on your internet is dishing up lower than the tick server, that it compounds the low tick server problem significantly. So, like for example, I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time since I've had this conversation, but essentially, like right now we have the problem of we can have multiple actions that take place on our PC or on our screen, right? And then the server is still catching up on what our opponent is doing, and so all of a sudden it'll process everything all at the same time, and then that's how you will be shooting somebody square in the face, and then you go behind a wall, and then you die.
Yep.
And you only hit them twice, right? And it has to do with the way that packets land on the server, and the server processes it and redistributes.
It's interesting.
What happened, right? And so what they said is that when you raise the tick rate, that the connection quality of the two players involved has to go up exponentially as well. Otherwise, the server is like you aren't getting the information back to you fast enough for your computer to process what's going on. And so the way he phrased it is imagine like the worst frame drops you've ever had, but it's all the time.
That actually makes sense because I mean it's you're also receiving information just as much as you're sending information to the server. So I could see how that would work. I would imagine if I had to take an educated guess though, so a lot of people don't know this, but they have lag compensation built into their game, especially Warzone. And I'd almost bet that has I'd bet that has a large part to do with why that wouldn't work well too. Because lag compensation is a big thing.
Yeah, I think that's been toned down, to be honest. I think the lag compensation is down. I think we're just dealing with I think they have fewer server centers running right now.
Yeah. Do you remember how bad the lag compensation was in Warzone 2.0 when it launched, when you would run somebody over the vehicle? Their body would fly up in the air and they would teleport back into that spot and shoot you in the back?
I have a clip of that. I have it clipped. Exactly that. It's like you're playing bumper cars, and you bounced him up, and he bounced up over the car, landed behind it, and then shot me in the through the driver's side door. And I was like, it would have been it probably we would have I think we would have won that game. It was like the last full team, and I would have had two of them run over and had a chance to get away, and it just bounced right off. I was unhappy.
Oh yeah, Jay.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
One thing I also wanted to point out too, and I've talked to Sub One about this before, but think about this, Cap. You remember before? I think it was probably before 2019 when we were all asking for dedicated servers, right? Everybody wanted dedicated servers. Well, guess what came along with dedicated servers? They were able to have more control over the matchmaking algorithm and more customization. And this type of skill-based matchmaking came in. I know it's a little off subject, but it just, you mentioned
it kind of goes hand in hand.
So just think about it. I mean, would you agree?
I would think, yeah. I mean, it definitely does. It's definitely one of the downsides of it because, like you were talking about earlier, I think that's a real solid reason we can't pick servers. If we were able to pick servers, with there being dedicated servers now, that the algorithm just wouldn't have enough of a pool of players to choose from to function correctly. It just would not work. Which is another, and that right there's the exact reason. That's one reason I put up my VPN video, because I was like, well, if enough people break it, it'll be the exact same thing. Because guess what you can do? You can pick servers, right? Enough people, just actually, if enough people were using the geofence on it and not even the VPN itself, just using the geofence, we could probably, as a community, just all break SBMM overnight.
Something's got to happen right? Like those, I think the SBMM and the cheating thing are the two biggest issues. Like,
Oh, they are
I
100%.
can't even deal with the bugs. Okay, and Sub and I both know people that
Bugs
do
happen with
development
games. I
on
mean,
this
that's
game. Yeah,
understandable.
and we know they're hardworking people and everything, but
Mhm.
it's, to me, the bigger priority is the SBMM, and the reason why I say that is because that affects 100% of the player pool from the
Exactly.
second they turn on their computer or Xbox or PlayStation to the time they log off. Cheating, not everybody, as we discussed earlier, the way it's broken down, not everybody deals with the cheating. And that's why it's always funny to me, though, too. Like, I've had people come in my posts and say, no, the biggest issue is they'll throw a curveball and be like, aim assist. And I'm like, oh my God. What the fuck?
Well, speaking of aim assist, right? Because this is one of those things that I'm going to throw it to you, Jay, in a second, because I know you've got We're going to follow your journey. We're going to touch base on this. But this is something that comes up on aim assist, right, all the time. That it's like, how easy it is to abuse aim assist. And I think one of the things that we have to remember is that the majority of the player base doesn't know how to set their settings right
That's
to
correct.
actually be able to use aim assist at all if it's not accidental, right? Like the number of people who get kills accidentally because their aim assist works versus the number of people who abuse it, it's like it's got to be 100 to 1, right? Like they will lose their gunfights primarily because they don't know how to set their settings right to use aim assist properly to their skill level. And I
Well, it
think that's
doesn't
one of
help
the biggest
also to like newer players that there's a million fucking settings too.
Didn't you have a tweet about that? One or both of you had a tweet about that this week where I thought they kind of that might have been you, Cap, dialing in it where it's like, well, you got like this precision setting and
There's so many. It's so confusing for new players, dude. Because they're like, oh, let me change my controller set. What is that? What does this do? Like, if you were a new player and you went into those settings, it would be an overload. It would be, there's so many settings in there that should just be default,
I have a buddy who took Modern Warfare 2 off and only came back recently. And
good for him.
It was,
I know, right?
It was,
he saved himself a year of frustration.
First of all, he's the worst of us too. Like, Warzone, Modern Warfare 2 was made for him. I point this out to him and everybody gets mad, but I'm like, it was made for you. Why'd you take the year off?
Damn, but it's like, that's cold, bro.
There are so many settings, right, that he didn't know existed.
Yeah.
And so he boots up and he starts playing, and it's like, we start talking about different things. Like one day we got into, we were joking about this. There's some TikTok video that we shared around, and literally, what is that? Like every time we made a joke about something, he'd be like, "What is that? What is that? What is that?" And we spent like 45 minutes walking him through how to get his settings like in line. And he still, I don't think he has any idea what half of them do. And I think that's, in a way, it's its own skill gap. Like knowledge of the game, like the fundamental mechanics of the game has become a skill gap, which, I'm not going to lie. Like I enjoy digging into all this stuff and learning it and fiddling with stuff. So to me, it's like, great. I get to dunk on some kid who doesn't know how to use his aim assist because he doesn't know how to set his sensitivity right.
Well, and you're a nerd.
Shut up.
That's what makes you so great, man.
But so I went this summer. I had the chance to actually dive into some of the older CODs. Had a chance to play Black Ops 3. Played Black Ops 2. I still have Infinite Warfare to go, or Black Ops 4, I should say. Played Blackout. And I just remember on Black Ops 3, I booted it up for the first time and started just running a match against bots just to get the feel for it. And I'm like, man, I've been talking about how aim assist is, different types of aim assist haven't changed over time, right? And all of a sudden, like there isn't, like I can't feel any aim assist whatsoever. And I'm like, I'm going to have to eat so much crow on this. Like, I don't know what the hell. And around the time there were a bunch of pros did a tournament on it, right? There's a setting to turn it on. You used to be able to turn aim assist off and on with a setting, and it was defaulted to off. I don't know if you knew that.
See, now it's defaulted on. It's defaulted on because you can. I used to warm up like that. I'd turn aim assist off while I was warming up and everything. But yeah, that's funny. I didn't even know, dude. In 2019, that was the first time I ever knew that there was ADS sensitivity. I didn't know that because, like, dude,
there wasn't though.
One of my buddies came in and like I'm shooting at somebody and he's watching my stream and I'm just like fucking all over the place. And he's like, dude, what's your ADS sensitivity? I'm like, I don't know. And like we went in there and it was set at the default level of 1. He's like, yeah, back that down. And so I did. And the second I did that, dude, is when I was starting to be able to like just beam people, because I was able to actually stay on target.
This is a topic I'm gonna throw this to Cap in a minute because I want to hear his thoughts on it. But I used to play on whatever default was. Like I played on default for a long time, and then
it's 4-4.
Someone 4-4, yeah, and then somebody said I needed to play on 6.9, and so I did that for a while, and then I switched to mouse and key, and I played that for about a year. And then it just got too painful and I couldn't do it. So I switched back to controller during the back half of Cold War going into Caldera. And when I did that is when I really dug into it. And I actually ramped up and started playing at like 2020 for a while. But I was missing all of my shots. And then someone told me about playing on high sensitivity, low ADS. And then I watched some videos on how to learn your personal sensitivity. And so, right now I play at like 11, like 0.5 or something like that. So about between a 5 and a 6 ADS sensitivity and, an 11 for standard movement. But Caps, last I checked, you're at a 2020.
Holy
right?
So yeah, I've always played on like 2020 sensitivity with a 1.0 ADS, which is wild.
Mm-hmm.
But I dropped recently to a 7.7 just to play, because I'm pushing for top 250 in ranked right now. So I've dropped to 7.7 just to compete because those kids don't miss. The reason I do 2020, it's flashy, it's fun, and there's no other feeling than flicking your controller, making it look like mouse and keyboard, and just locking on somebody. It makes for some awesome clips. But like, on a competitive side of things, it's not the greatest sensitivity, I will say.
Where are you at rank wise? If not to get too far off subject, where are you at rank wise right now?
So we're about to break Crimson, and then hopefully tonight we'll push through Crimson into Iridescent, and then the next day we should make the top 250 push.
Do you have a set squad that you run with, or are you just running with several people, or what?
We have a set squad, and we have one we swap out, and we're all players. So I took a year off Modern Warfare 2 as well, so I'm coming back after your break. I did some tournaments and stuff back in rebirth days for Warzone 1, but I took a year off and came back, and we just and my entire squad all took a year off, so we're all kind of relearning the ropes.
Did I hear you say you competed in the World Series of Warzone?
I did. I played the Fortune's Keep tournament. We came in 62nd place.
Okay,
that was with a pickup team though.
That's dope.
Like, dude, last minute.
Do you do you prefer big map or small map?
So it depends. I preferred. Okay, so Verdansk got like Caldera was meh. It was
ass.
Yeah, it was meh. Here's the thing, right? So I hate this new map. I hate it. It has no map flow, and I don't know what they would have to change with it to make it better. But it just doesn't. The new map just doesn't feel right.
There's no big POI.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And they're very unmemorable POIs.
Yeah, no.
And all the buildings feel weird.
No peak. Yeah, none of those big like POIs that all the sweats like yourself go drop in and drop fucking 13 kills in the first like 60 seconds.
Yeah, and rotating feels like just from any location. Like, and that's the thing, right? It's a very split up map. There's like quadrants if you think about it, and if you break it up like that. Sure. And rotating from those quadrants, there's such a high chance of dying off on those rotations because there's just so much openness on that map. And what's weird too for me is like there's a lot of long range engagement on that map, and we have 0 long range metas right now that are viable.
Are not good right now, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And like, here's the thing, right? Is that's why big map. I think one reason people are flocking to the Fortune's playlist right now for ranked is because like all of the engagements on that map are 200 meters plus, and let's be real, none of the guns we have right now shoot 200 meters plus. Not well, anyway. I mean, sure, can you break plates on somebody at 200 meters? Yeah, 50 rounds out of your 60 round mag, you can do it. You might get them down, maybe, if you hit laser beam shots. But their other 3 teammates are gonna save the day, smoke them out, and res them. So it's plate break simulator.
Smokes, please? Can we please get rid of smokes?
No,
at least on the small maps.
Maybe
I'm so over.
They make it tough to deal with too when you're trying to get a squad down. I mean, it's smart. It's crazy that I still run stems. I don't run smokes.
I run stems.
I run smokes, and I started running smoke when I started playing ranked on Al Mazrah, and they've nerfed those to where they don't last as long. So it's almost like if you're not on the res immediately with that at the same time that smoke goes down, they can see your ass by the time you get that res off. Like it's that unless you have the med vest.
They're 5 seconds.
Med vest, yeah.
You want to hear a cool tip? All right, I'm going to give you guys this, right? So if you're going to res somebody that goes down, throw one smoke on their body, and then run up and throw one directly up in the air. And by the time, so when you start resing, the other smoke will go, it's 5 seconds, right? And it's 7 seconds to res. So right as your other smoke ends, the other one will come straight down and smoke you. So you can finish the res.
Interesting.
That's stupidly smart. I'm going to edit that out so other idiots don't do it, because otherwise I'm never getting the kill again.
Shit, dude.
It's something else that smokes do as well, is they break aim assist too. Aim assist won't work on controllers. So that's another very valuable tactic. If you know how to use that correctly, you can turn a close range situation that you have no doubt that you're going to lose into a win if you know how to play it right.
I see my guy Brax do that shit all the time. Like, so he's a World Series of Warzone competitor. He's the one that said the EU sucks. Fucking awesome, dude. I love it. But I see him do that all the time. He'll start taking rounds, and as he's trying to run away, he looks down immediately and throws a smoke and dips. And that's why, I guess, since you said that actually makes sense. Because I've noticed him doing that before.
Yeah, they won't get aim assist on you in that smoke, and it can really... That can make a difference. That can make a massive difference. Even with 3-4 people shooting at you, that smoke, it can really turn a situation around.
Goddamn,
it's super OP.
Players. Fuck.
See, smoke, you used to get aim assist through smoke, but we don't anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. You used to get, the other thing that they've done is, I don't know if you mess around with this, but a lot of the thermals don't work through smoke anymore until the smoke fades.
Too. Which I think they should, personally.
Yeah, I mean, they should, like, that's one of the, it's so frustrating, right? Like, you can't use a thermal to get through it. You can't use aim assist to get through it. Like, it's become a force field. It feels like, to me, it's a big crutch. And it just, like,
especially how much flinch you have on any scope that has zoom, and like all the thermal scopes are like, what, 4 or 5x?
Yeah, at least.
So, like, if you get shot one time, I mean, you're looking straight up in the air after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of like subtle things that they do that really affect gameplay. One of the things I'd like to see them take away, and Sub and I've talked about this several times, they need to cut the fucking gulag stuff in half. Like, get rid of the tokens.
There's so many ways to come back.
I feel like I'm playing a big Resurgence match. Like, Resurgence has killed the Call of Duty BR experience for me. It's fucking killed it. Like, I shouldn't be having games where I die big map. Times.
Yeah, the tokens, those should be really rare. Like, they should be, and so should self revives. Like, in crates. Yep. You shouldn't be able to carry, and that's another thing, you should not be able to carry 5 self revives.
You should only 1.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, you're right.
I've downed somebody and they had 3 selves before on them, bro. It's actually insane.
I'm gonna say this on the self revives is that they're like the long range counter to sniping, to like one shot snipers, in my opinion. Like, I think they should take twice as long to actually get off, because like you have a med vest and a self res, you're up in 2.5 seconds or whatever it is. It's absurdly, like, you can't hit somebody enough times when they're down at range to kill them before their self gets them up again.
Yeah, because it's so fast.
Which is so frustrating. But like, if it took twice as long, right? If it was 10, 14 seconds to self and medvest didn't help yourself, right? If you're out at range and somebody pops you in the head with a cat AMR at 300 meters, right? You can scooch over, self yourself up. Like to me, I think that's where self revive should thrive. But like if we're mixing it up, 8-man in an 8-man mix, and I down someone, and I have to immediately deal with their partner, right? You should not be able to get back in the fight with a self.
Yeah.
Right? In
No,
my
I agree
opinion.
100%.
Like, you should be out of the fight. You may not die. You may be able to walk out of it okay, but you should be out of the fight, that immediate fight, right? You should not be able to pop back up and shoot me in the back. Look, have I successfully done that and turned the gunfight? Yes. Have I had that happen to me? Yes. Have I been robbed of a lot of kills because someone selfs and runs off? F those guys. Okay.
Yeah, you have to thirst. Like you have to
you have
now.
to. Yeah, you have to. There's no, you have to, and especially in ranked, because there's people on you all the time. And so I think it's like, I think they need to adjust selves where they're like, everybody says, oh, we should just have helmets. No, screw that. Like, what's the point of one-shot sniping if everyone's just going to have a helmet? Because they're going to be, people are going to have 6 helmets stacked in their backpack, okay? Right? No. I think that's a stupid idea. One shot to the head, you're down. But you can have selves, and the selves in that long-range scenario will help you recover from the somebody out of the blue pop my head as I, walked across, the street, right? Like, that scenario is where the self should thrive. And I think if you break them in the short range where you can't get back in that fight, I think selves are going to be fine. And I think stacking them doesn't matter.
Yeah,
right?
see, that would be different. It's just the speed of which you can self with that vest is ridiculous. And on top of it, if you go down and you're running that perk, I'm having a brain fart because I'm old. Yep, shrouded, right? So if you go down, you insta drop a smoke, you're up, boop, gone. Probably surviving that fight, almost 80% chance you're getting away.
Yep.
Hit the
not only back in the fight,
box and fucking gone, bro.
Yeah, and not just that, and you're smoking the teammates around you, so like they're not taking shots, right? So if they're down, they can res. I mean, that just you going down alone could turn the fight around, ironically.
It's like you actually benefit from getting knocked. Shit, maybe I should start running that, bro.
No, here's the thing, right? If you're playing solos, if you're doing solo, run that perk. You'll never die. I swear to God. If you have self and you have a med vest and you're running that perk, you get knocked, you'll be up before they get
down
to you.
And you're gone.
I think before my game session tonight,
it's ridiculous.
When we're done here, I'm going to go outside and practice falling down and getting back up, just so I can be ready for tonight.
Well, tell me, so Jay, we're running to the edge of our time here, but I want to get your update. So you've been running mouse and key now. You've given up controller.
Yep.
You've turned from the old ways, and now, or I guess you've returned to the old ways of mouse and key. Whole arm aiming. How's your arm doing, and how's your aim going?
Okay, so I liken it to what Obi-Wan said to Anakin. You were supposed to destroy the Sith, not join them. So I've joined the dark side and gone keyboard and mouse, like you said. I do not use my arm, more of a wrist thing. I don't really know how to use my arm like that. It's been a week. Well, it's been over a week, but I've gone literally a week straight where I have, no matter how it's gone, I have not switched to controller. I haven't touched my controller in a week, and I'm not going to, at this point. I'm getting more comfortable. Like some of the clips I've posted, while they're not anything flashy, it's just small improvements. I try to be very regimented in my routine. So, I'll go into aim labs and do about 6 to 10 exercises in there. Then I'll go run my couple matches against bots. Actually 3 matches now because I'm practicing quick scoping too. And then I'll go play some multi or plunder, man. And I got my base and my foundation for it though, running plunder and zombies. So I knew I could get through it without being over frustrated because I just didn't give a shit about the modes.
MK is fun though. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Do you have a height adjustable desk?
No, I do not. Yep. Nope.
If you decide like M and K is like the journey you're gonna stick with for sure, invest in a height adjustable desk because like that will make changing mouse styles easier for you. Because like if you're like wrist style where you're resting your wrist on the mouse pad, right? I found like when I was getting more into M and K, I found that like I did that because my desk was too high, and I was able to do more arm style M and K by lowering my desk more. Also, probably because I'm short and any desk is tall for me, but
Sure. I like the movement better. I'll tell you, I can move better on mouse and key than I could on controller. It's not even close.
Oh, dude, looting is so much better on M and K. Dude, you can fly through a room and just loot everything easy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yep.
just the shooting part that I have to get used to. And one thing that Sub One has told me, and we've talked about this, and I
Sniping
think,
too. God, sniping's better on M&K.
yeah, sniping
Yeah,
is
it is.
fun, but he's 100% right, and I think this is where like the whole argument for aim assist comes in. Not making a lot of sense is trying to remember that there are just certain fights that are not built for M&K, and don't take a controller fight with
Right.
M&K using controller weapons and then bitch about aim assist. Like, he's 100% right about that. And I've been trying to
rotational
be a
aim
little
assist
more
fights.
mindful. Yeah.
Like if you're on a stairway sliding down and you got a corner that goes into a fucking room, like trying to slide cancel into that and take the guy that's just holding the corner. Like on M&K, that's a hard fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like their rotational is going to kick in, and then you have to make the slide in and then flick for the turn and then track them as they're going to be strafing or trying to slide out the doorway.
Yep.
It's definitely your strong areas are definitely mid range, because I played Verdansk. I played the entire beginning of Verdansk M&K,
Oh,
and then Cold War came out and I swapped the controller.
You probably fucking abused that car 98, didn't you?
Oh yeah, it was filthy. I was shooting people out of helis at like 400 meters.
The Swiss K31 too. I used that on controller and I fucking loved it. I can't imagine how much I'd love it on mouse.
It was so much fun on M&K.
Yeah.
I swapped the controller after that because like they did that small rotational, well, small, whatever you want to call it. Did that rotational aim assist update in Cold War, and I knew immediately. I was like, God, this M&K just can't compete anymore.
So aim assist was not. It was not as strong in Modern Warfare 2019 as it is now, because I actually feel like this version is less sticky than it was in Modern Warfare 2.
Yeah, I will say long. So I think the reason for that is like there's a lot more long range, and I think player models are a little like player model hitboxes. I think are smaller in this COD. I've been saying that. I think the player models themselves, if you were to measure them, I could test this. There's a couple of ways I could do this. I could test it.
It's been tested. They're off. They're wonky.
About to say, it seems like player models are smaller too.
Interesting.
So I feel like at long range, it makes like knowing if that aim assist is there a little bit more difficult.
Sure. I noticed it on Favela down the end, where the playground is. I don't know how much multi you play, but, on Favela, where you have the one end that's got the long building and the barber shop, and then you have that long, like, grassy walkway. I'll never forget when I noticed it, because I was by the playground and I'm trying to shoot somebody down there, and I'm like, what the fuck? This is not anywhere. Like, I couldn't stay on. Like, it was
you probably thought you were shooting at 5 pixels of the guy. It looks like he's that far away.
Yeah, and you can kind of sometimes feel the drag, but I just can't feel that every time. Like, I couldn't, like he was saying earlier, I couldn't master, like, I didn't know how to use aim assist consistently.
That's one reason I dropped from 20 in this COD down to 7, is because just like the aim assist also, I've noticed, drops very, very frequently in this game due to very, very, very bad texture modeling. Or I guess it was not texture models, but game entity models getting in the way and breaking it that shouldn't be detecting it. So like if they'll get near, like for example, like the grapevine right now on Fortune's Keep, if they go behind that, you lose all aim assist. It didn't used to do that, and it's because it's detecting that as a solid wall, unfortunately. It's just a transparent one. So your aim assist drops, and I've noticed like if they get near even tiny like street signs and stuff, it'll sometimes drop too. There's a lot of situations
it's much
where
more
I think
responsive.
Yep,
to obstruction.
it really is. So that's why I think a lot of players have ended up dropping very low sense. Like I know I have a couple of friends that play competitive. One of them is playing 5.5, which is the lowest he's ever played. And I mean 7.7. I haven't played this low sense in years. I mean it's because you have to have that natural. Like, you have to have that natural accuracy in this game, because there are times where the aim assist just won't be there.
I was on between 4 and 6. I would go back and forth between 4.4 and 6.6, depending on how things were going. Like, I'm just trying to figure out a way to stop being a bot, and, like, if I'm doing bad, and so I drop it or raise it or whatever. But, like, now...
Sometimes a 7 feels high to me.
Yeah, and now, like, so, like, that's the one other thing, too, about the mouse and key thing, Sub is, very helpful community, as I've mentioned before, but everybody's coming in asking like, what's your sense, and telling you, what to run on your sense and everything. And that's something that you have to figure out for yourself. I can't plug in a number that you come in and give me. It's not like controllers, right?
Yep.
Like it's a lot more complicated and a lot more factors involved. So I actually went through an exercise with my buddy Hillsman, who's been doing mouse and key for a few years, and in the firing range, just like taking how long and how fast I can do like a 180 or a 360, and then basing my sensitivity on that. And I feel like, I'm playing in a 20 cents with 1,000 DPI, and people are like, oh my God, that's fucking wrong or whatever. And I'm just like, it works for me, man. I overcompensate sometimes, but that's just me also not used to the input.
Well, I think, that's that. So I mentioned it earlier in the segment where when people that really struggle with aim assist don't have their sensitivity set right? They don't know how, first of all, and they haven't taken the time to figure out where they should be, like in how they play the game, right? A lot of people they'll just take whatever settings, some pro player posts and say, well, this person plays on this, so this is the best setting. And what the reality is that, pro players, Caps can attest to this, that you're so in tune to like when you move, like you don't make mistakes. Like, I mean, you make mistakes, but you don't jam the stick to one side and not know exactly how fast you're going to rotate, right? Like you've refined the control over how much you move the controller and how fast you rotate and how that all relates spatially, right? And same thing with mouse and keyboard. And so figuring out what works for you is a very you thing, right? Like I can give you ideas and places to start, but you have to do it on your own, right? You have to figure it out for yourself. And it's the only way that you're going to find a good sensitivity for you, right? For me, like the high sensitivity, low ADS is something that took me a while to figure out. And I think that's one of the best traits that people that pay attention to this game develop. And why I said it was a skill gap earlier is that they have to figure out how to make their gameplay, how to make their settings match their gameplay, right? And their style and their, ability. And I think that's something that, can change over time, and people should keep an eye on when their game, when their ability and their settings aren't lined up. I think for a lot of people, that's where they start choking. And then on top of that, I think if more people understand what they're, how to play it, they'll find, we would in theory see a raise in overall TTK, and maybe, at that point, conversations about aim assist make more sense at a wider level. So I think it's one of those things that, if you're struggling, the answer is to figure out why your sense, what are you on the right sensitivities is like a first step to how to improve your game.
Yeah, then finding like whenever you do find one that you're finally comfortable with, stay with it. Just stick to it. Don't keep changing it, because if you keep changing it, you'll never build up that muscle memory that you need.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so I think it's important to, it's one of the, if anybody's listened this far in the podcast and like, if you're going to take something away, you're struggling in this game, like start there, like start over, like take your sensitivity. Maybe I'll link some in the description below of ways of resources and guides you can go of like, how do I go about determining that? How do I start? How do I figure out where I should play? And I think that's, that's a conversation that could be an entire podcast in and of itself, I think. But speaking of which, we're running over time right now. So I am pretty much at the point where I think we need to send this out. Caps, it's been awesome having you on. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your thoughts with us on these topics, and informing us on what you know, and just having this
thanks for having me. I had a great time.
Let's share where share all your socials, man.
Oh yeah, it's my name Kapzlocked on Twitter, Twitch, Beatfinder. Just kidding, I'm not on Beatfinder. Maybe I should be. But yeah, on any social you can think of, it's just at Kapzlocked.
All right,
excellent. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, thanks for hopping in, Jay. As always, a fantastic episode. Great having you as my partner as we go through this. Once again, I am Sub1KD. This has been J007T and our J007TV. This has been Sub1KD along with J007TV and the Slightly Above Average Gaming Podcast. We're logging off now, so we'll see you next time.